Hey everyone and welcome back. VR gaming.
Yeah.
It's more than just putting on a headset and, taking out some virtual bad guys.
Right.
So today we're going deep on the future of VR gaming.
Yeah.
And we've got this really cool article as our jumping off point. It's called The Future of VR, where gaming gets real. Literally. Literally, yeah. It paints a really interesting picture of what's ahead for VR. And I think it's going to be fun to kind of unpack some of the ideas.
I think so too. And it's funny because one of the things that struck me right away is that they're not saying VR is going to replace all gaming.
Right.
It's more like it's going to be a totally different experience.
Yeah, like a separate thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how streaming services haven't completely killed movie theaters?
Yeah.
It's more like they offer a different way to enjoy movies.
Right, different kind of experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think VR is kind of like that.
Yeah, and that makes me wonder, for someone like you who loves interactive experiences,
Sure.
is this kind of like the next evolution of entertainment, or is it more like a niche offshoot?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, one thing the article talks about that I think gives us a clue is this thing called haptic feedback.
Okay.
And basically it means it's not just about seeing the virtual world.
Right.
It's about feeling it too.
Yeah. Whoa, yeah.
So imagine feeling the weight of a virtual sword you're holding or the texture of a surface you're touching.
Oh, wow.
How does that kind of sensory input actually change the game?
That's next level.
Yeah.
It's like going from watching a movie to starring in one.
Totally.
But with all your senses.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be awesome for action games or anything where you really want to feel connected to the environment.
And that's what I think makes VR so unique. It's not just about the graphics anymore. It's like a full body experience. And the tech they're talking about to achieve this, it's pretty wild.
Okay, you gotta tell me
Okay.
what kind of tech are we talking here?
So they mentioned this thing called foveated rendering.
Foveated rendering.
Yeah, I know it sounds like something out of Star Trek.
It does.
But it's actually pretty clever. Basically what it does is it focuses the processing power on where your eyes are looking.
Oh.
Kind of like how our brains do it naturally.
So instead of trying to make the whole virtual world super detailed, they just focus on what you're actually seeing.
Exactly. And that makes the whole thing way smoother and more realistic.
Oh, that's really smart.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
What about the headsets themselves? I've heard they're getting lighter and more powerful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The articles, they're raving about the latest advancements in the headsets, particularly the visual clarity and the processing speed.
Yeah.
They say it's like looking through a window into another world.
Wow.
None of that blurry lag you used to get with the old headsets.
Oh, yeah. I remember trying VR way back when.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like looking through a screen door with Vaseline smeared all over it.
Ugh. Yeah, I remember that.
Not exactly immersive.
No, not at all.
But if they're really as good as they're saying in this article, maybe I need to try it again.
Oh, yeah. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
And it's not even just about the visuals. They talk about this enhanced hand tracking, too.
Right.
Which is really important for that feeling of actually being in the virtual world. You're not just pushing buttons anymore. It's you're using your hands naturally.
So I could reach out and grab a virtual object and feel its weight and mess around with it with my hands.
Exactly. And they're talking about a level of precision that was unheard of just a few years ago.
Wow.
It's all about creating a seamless connection between your movements and what's happening in the virtual world.
Your body's actually there.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Right.
I'm already starting to think about how this could be used for way more than just gaming.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
What else does the article say about VR's potential?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. They say VR is about to change not just entertainment, but tons of fields like healthcare and education and...
Wait, hold on. VR for healthcare and education?
Yeah.
That's a big jump from shooting zombies.
I know, right?
How does that even work?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next time.
Yeah.
We'll dive into some real-world examples of how VR is already changing things in healthcare, education, and a whole lot more.
Oh, wow.
It's a wild ride, and I can't wait to share it with you.
Okay. I am hooked.
All right, good.
I'm ready for part 2.
So, we were talking about how VR can be used for way more than just gaming.
Yeah. I'm still kind of blown away by that. VR for healthcare and education.
I know, right? It's a whole other world.
So Okay, give me an example. Like, how are they using VR in education?
Okay, so imagine this. Instead of just reading about ancient Rome in a textbook,
Right.
you could like actually walk through the Forum, explore the Colosseum, and like actually experience what it was like to live in Roman times.
Whoa, that would make history so much more interesting.
Right. It wouldn't just be memorizing names and dates.
Yeah.
It would be like stepping back in time.
Yeah, sign me up for that history class.
Right. And it's not even just history. Think about science class.
Okay.
You could dissect a virtual frog
Oh.
without actually having to like cut up a real frog
Right, right.
or explore the human body from the inside out.
It's like turning education into a giant video game.
Totally.
One where you're actually learning stuff.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, what about healthcare? What are they doing with VR there?
Well, one area where it's already making a big difference is pain management.
Really?
Yeah, like the article talks about how immersive VR can actually distract patients from pain,
Hmm.
like during medical procedures or while they're recovering from surgery.
So it's like tricking your brain into focusing on something else.
Exactly, and it can be really effective.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's not just for like short-term pain either. They're using it for chronic pain management too.
So for people who are dealing with pain all the time,
Yeah, exactly.
wow, I can
Right.
see how that would be a game changer.
Totally. And it goes beyond pain management too. They're also using VR for physical therapy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so instead of just doing boring, repetitive exercises,
Yeah.
patients can play these fun, interactive games in VR
Oh, wow.
that help them regain strength and mobility.
That's amazing.
It's like turning rehab into a game.
I'd be way more likely to stick with my physical therapy if it felt like I was playing a video game.
Exactly. It can be a huge motivator.
Okay, so we've got education, we've got physical health.
Mm-hmm.
What about mental health? Can VR help with that too?
Absolutely. That's another area where VR is showing a lot of promise.
Okay.
The article talks about how VR can be used to create these like safe, controlled environments for treating phobias
Oh, wow.
and anxiety disorders.
Interesting.
So imagine you could confront your fears virtually, like at your own pace with the help of a therapist.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's like exposure therapy, but without the real world risks.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like a training ground for your mind.
Right. You can practice coping mechanisms and build resilience.
In a safe space.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, VR is like a multi-tool for the mind and body.
Totally.
Okay, but what about the social side of things? I remember the article mentioned something about that, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure I really got it.
Okay, so think about how we connect with people online now.
Through like video calls and stuff.
Right, mostly through screens.
Right.
But with VR, we can actually interact with people in a virtual space,
Okay.
like almost as if we were physically together.
Oh, I see.
So imagine attending a virtual concert
Okay.
with friends from all over the world,
Yeah.
or collaborating on a project in a shared virtual studio.
That would be so cool.
Right, it takes video conferencing to a whole new level.
Instead of just seeing faces on a screen, it's like
Yeah.
you're actually in the same room. Okay, I'm getting it now.
And it can break down geographical barriers,
Yeah.
create new opportunities for social interaction.
That is amazing. But I do have one concern.
Okay.
Could all this virtual interaction make people more isolated in the real world?
That's a good point, and it's a valid concern. Like any technology, VR has its pros and cons.
Yeah.
It's all about balance.
Right.
Just like we shouldn't spend all our time on our phones.
Right.
We need to be careful not to spend too much time in virtual reality.
I see your point.
But I do think the potential benefits are huge,
Right.
especially for connecting people across distances
Yeah.
and creating new ways to socialize.
Okay. So it's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Using VR as a tool for connection,
Mm-hmm.
not a replacement for real life.
Exactly.
Okay.